ready to dive in. Today we're tackling Chapter 3 of The Dreamer's Journey, Lucid Dreams and Subconscious Awareness.
Yeah, this chapter's a trip.
Totally. It's like a coming-of-age story, but with this psychological twist, like the author's giving us a peek into their mind,
Yeah.
and saying, hey, come explore with me.
I like that, a peek inside. It's cool how they mix their own life with these big questions about, like, what is consciousness?
Right. It's not just some boring autobiography. So at the beginning, they describe their childhood. They were a good kid, good family, kind of kept to themselves. Actually, they call themselves a good kid, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, like, who does that?
Right. But it shows they're thinking about themselves, even as a kid. They also say their family was super close. They felt like they had, get this, 5 parents.
Wow, 5 parents. That's a lot of eyes watching you.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's why they're so self-aware, always observing everyone. Then they go to college, and things change, right? They start experimenting, like a lot of college kids do. Drinking, smoking, they even tried space cakes.
Oh, space cakes, the classic college experience.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They said none of it really did much for them.
Huh, interesting. That's not what you usually hear, right? People have these crazy stories about those things.
Totally. It's like we expect everyone to have these mind-blowing experiences. But the author's like, nope, not for me.
I guess everyone's different, right? Our brains are all wired in unique ways. Plus, maybe your expectations play a role, too.
For sure. And speaking of being different, the author talks about feeling like 2 different people. One with their college buddies and a whole other person with their friends from back home.
Oh, yeah, I totally get that. Like you're code switching between friend groups, trying to fit in.
Yeah, like who am I really? I
Yeah.
bet a lot of people feel that way, especially when they're young. Then, after college, things take a turn. They meet this new crew and start using marijuana like every day for 2 years.
Whoa, every day. That's a lot.
Yeah, and it's here that their fascination with altered states of consciousness really kicks in.
Mm.
They describe this whole period as super intense. Brotherhood, partying, deep conversations, and, of course, lots and lots of weed.
It sounds like they found their tribe, people who are also into exploring their minds.
Exactly. But the author also says they started having trouble relating to anyone who wasn't high, which I kind of get.
Yeah, like you're on a different wavelength, seeing the world differently.
Totally. And that's what altered states are all about, right? Not just feeling different, but thinking and even acting different.
Yes, exactly. It's like you're stepping outside of your usual way of seeing things, your normal reality.
Right. And get this. The author would write down all these profound thoughts while high on high. But the next day, they'd read them and be like, what the heck is this?
Haha, that's classic. Like trying to remember a dream, it just slips away.
Totally. Like your brain was speaking a different language when you were high,
Yeah.
and now you can't understand it.
It makes you wonder what's going on in our minds when we're in those altered states. What are we accessing?
Right. It's like there's this whole other dimension to our consciousness that we only get glimpses of. But then, just when they're deep into this whole altered states thing, their cousin introduces them to something new.
Philosophy.
You got it.
Yeah.
And it's like this huge turning point for them.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden they had this framework for understanding everything they'd been experiencing with marijuana.
Right. Like they were searching for the right words to describe it all, and bam, philosophy gave them those words.
Exactly. It's like those philosophical ideas gave them a way to make sense of it all.
Makes you think, huh? Like, if they hadn't gone down that marijuana rabbit hole, would they have even been interested in philosophy?
That's a good question. We do hear about, like, psychedelics opening people up to new ways of thinking, even to spirituality and stuff.
Hmm.
But it's tough to say if it's a direct cause and effect thing.
I guess it depends on the person, right? Some people are just naturally more curious, more open to those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure. But what's interesting is that both marijuana and philosophy can make you question things, like your assumptions about reality.
And yourself too, right? Like, who am I? What's it all about?
Exactly. They both push you to think outside the box, to challenge your own beliefs.
And that can be pretty powerful, especially for someone like the author who seems to be really into self-reflection.
Absolutely. So we've got this whole journey through altered states, this sudden embrace of philosophy. It's all very heady stuff. But what does it all mean for, the average person?
Yeah, like what can we take away from this? Most of us aren't philosophy majors or smoking weed every day.
Well, one thing that stands out to me is that self-discovery isn't always a straight line.
Right, it's messy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There are detours, unexpected turns, things that seem bad or pointless can actually lead to some pretty amazing insights.
So it's like, don't be afraid to explore, even if it seems weird or unconventional.
Exactly. You never know what you might find. And it also shows how important it is to be open to new ideas, new perspectives.
Because that spark of inspiration can come from anywhere, right?
Absolutely. A book, a conversation, even just sitting quietly and thinking.
And you know what else I realized? This chapter kind of blows up the idea that there's a right way to find yourself.
Yeah, there's this pressure in our culture, like you have to meditate, journal, go to therapy.
Right, like there's a formula.
Yeah.
But the author found their own way, and it was totally unique.
And it worked for them. That's what matters, right? It helped them connect with something deeper, something meaningful.
It's funny. They were basically high for 2 years, then boom, they find meaning in philosophy. Not exactly your typical self-help advice.
But it just goes to show there's no one-size-fits-all approach to self-discovery.
It's a personal journey, and everyone's path is different.
Exactly. You got to experiment, be curious, and trust your gut.
Okay, so we've talked about altered states, philosophy, the messy nature of self-discovery. But there's one thing that keeps bugging me. Remember how the author talked about feeling like two different people? One with their college friends, one with their childhood friends.
Yeah, I remember that. It was interesting.
Well, I'm wondering, were those really different selves? Or just different parts of the same self? And how does that, like, multiplicity play into our understanding of the subconscious mind?
You're getting into some deep psychological territory there.
Mm.
There are theories about multiple selves, about a unified self with different facets.
So maybe it's not about being two totally different people, but about having different sides to ourselves that come out depending on who we're with and what we're doing.
Yeah, like maybe the party animal and the deep thinker aren't separate, just different sides of the same coin.
And maybe exploring those different sides through friendships, altered states, even philosophy helps us understand ourselves better.
Exactly. It's like piecing together a puzzle, figuring out who we really are.
Okay, I think we're starting to connect the dots here. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about altered states of consciousness. We talked a lot about marijuana, but it seems like there's so much more to explore there in terms of how those states can be used for self-discovery.
Oh, absolutely. The author's story is just one example. There's a whole world of research out there on meditation, lucid dreaming, even sensory deprivation tanks.
Whoa, sensory deprivation tanks. That sounds intense.
It is, but the point is, people are using all these different techniques to alter their consciousness, to explore their inner worlds.
And a lot of these techniques have been around for centuries, right? Like in spiritual traditions.
Exactly. It's like we're rediscovering ancient wisdom with modern science.
So maybe the author's journey, as unconventional as it was, is actually more in line with how humans have been exploring consciousness all along.
That's a fascinating thought. It makes you wonder what other secrets about the mind are out there waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah, it's like, what are we missing out on in our everyday lives, you know? Stuck in this one way of seeing things.
Like, we're only using a tiny part of our brains. But there are all these other tools and techniques that can help us unlock those hidden parts. Meditation, breath work, even certain types of music.
It's like upgrading from a flashlight to a floodlight.
Exactly. And it's interesting how the author found their floodlight through philosophy. It gave them a way to understand all those strange thoughts and insights they were having.
Like they were gathering puzzle pieces, but they needed philosophy to show them how they fit together.
Right, having that framework can really help make sense of things. So if philosophy worked for the author, does that mean we should all go take a philosophy class?
Well, I don't know about that. But it does show that there are many paths to self-discovery, and what works for one person might not work for another.
Yeah, the key is to find what resonates with you, what helps you shine a light on your own mind.
So it's more about being open to trying new things, seeing what happens, than finding the one right method.
Exactly. And remember, self-discovery isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's about constantly questioning, exploring, and growing.
And you know what else this makes me think about? The whole idea of lucid dreaming, which is what this book is all about.
Right, the author's journey is ultimately leading towards understanding and practicing lucid dreaming.
Well, if we can learn to be aware in our dreams, even control them, what does that say about the power of our subconscious? It's like there's this whole other world we can tap into if we just know how.
And that's what's so exciting about this field of research. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible. As we learn more about the subconscious, who knows what incredible experiences we might be able to have.
It's like we're explorers setting out into uncharted territory.
Exactly. And while this chapter might not be a direct guide to lucid dreaming, it does offer some valuable insights.
Like be open to unexpected experiences, stay curious, and trust your own mind.
And maybe one day, we'll all be able to explore our dreams as easily as we navigate the waking world.
That's an awesome thought to end on. So there you have it, folks. A deep dive into Chapter 3 of The Dreamer's Journey. Hopefully this has sparked some new ideas and maybe even inspired you to explore your own subconscious a little further. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.